What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Phaithful Phanatics show. We are live here on DSM-Media's Philadelphia YouTube and Twitter channels. Guys, first and foremost, if you are new to the channel, if you are watching on Twitter, we greatly appreciate you. But do us a quick favor. Make sure to head on over to the YouTube link specifically. It's the best spot to get your thoughts and comments pulled up here on the screen with your host. On one half of them, Dylan Davis. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. Happy hump day, my man. The Phillies continue their magic at CBP. What are we now? 25-3 in their last 28 games at home. It is the best home field advantage in baseball since Rob Thompson has become the manager of this team in 2022. Nick Castellanos with a 4-hit night to walk things off against the Padres when things felt like they were dead in the water in the bottom of the ninth, man. So we're going to talk about this series following two straight series losses at Fenway and then at Camden Yards to the Orioles out in the American League and how that kind of feels to bounce back. Sixers all-season rumors are getting hot to start, Scotty. Sam Decker with a workout. Miles Bridges with all that shit. Maybe we bring that baggage to Philly. We're going to talk about that as well, man, and whatever else we feel like getting into here on the show this morning. But what's up, guys, and what's up, man?
What's good, man? I see you're getting that suntan. You're continuing the tan from the weekend. I know some people that follow us on Twitter.
Burn is
yeah, burn. It looks more like a burn, my man. Burn. You're looking really red today, but that means you're having a great time out there at the beach and in the sun, man. So people that follow us on Twitter probably saw a picture of us wasted on Saturday. I got a chance to link up with my man down at the shore. And we had a hell of a fucking time down there, man. I'm not sure I remember all of it, but I do remember the flick. I do remember having a great-ass time. But we are in the dog days of summer, man. We're going to talk some fightings, and then the rest is fucking rumors. That's where we're at. We're in rumor season. So
it's the best time.
You got to love it. You got to love it, man. But let's start with the fightings. Obviously, coming off the big W, the big bounce back, 2 Ws. Yeah, Lex is getting in on the comments here. The 2 bounce-back Ws against the Padres back home after a tough series against the Orioles. Now, mind you, the Orioles obviously playing some great baseball right now. It's nothing to be too disappointed about losing the series there in Baltimore. But it was kind of a litmus test in a sense. You are a little beat up right now if you're the Phillies, right? No Trey Turner in that series, no JT in that series. You get Trey Turner back for the Padres series. He returns. He gets, I believe he had a multi-hit coming back, a multi-hit game. But first thing I wanted to ask you, my man, coming back, getting the 2 Ws against the Padres back home, how big is that just from a standpoint of, once again, proving how different this team may be from teams in the past that maybe just don't bounce back from things like that? Maybe that, pushes them into a further slump. Yeah. I'm just interested in your thoughts on their resilience and ability to bounce back strongly here.
Well, you hit the nail right on the head, right? Like that's kind of what this team's been all year long. You keep waiting for that domino to kind of fall, right? And for them to really go through a bad stretch or a rough patch. And obviously they split the London series in a fashion in the second game that we would have never hoped to see, right? They come back home. They immediately go on the road to Boston, to Fenway. Boston's a 500-ish team this year. Yeah. But it's Fenway Park coming back from London, right, across the pond. Rough as always. They lose that series after taking game 1. Then they go to Baltimore, possibly playing the best team in the American League, one of the best teams in all of baseball, and a young Orioles team. They win game 1 in extra innings with Ranger on the mound. They lose the next 2. They've lost, 6 of their last 9 or 6 of their last 8 games at this point. 5 of their last 8 games at that point. And you're just waiting for that let's see what this team can do, because in the past, maybe they go through a 2-week stretch, right? Maybe Bryson Stott doesn't heat back up. Maybe Alec Boehm doesn't heat back up. Maybe this happens. Maybe that happens. And they don't. They come out and take the first 2 at home against the Padres. The other night, the bats are flying. Schwarber pimps 2 runs.
Schwarber is arrived.
Run. Marchand with a 4-hit night, Bryce with 2 hits, Trey with 2 hits, everybody with multi-hit games. I think they had 18 hits in that one with 9 runs. And then last night, they get out to a 1-0 lead. Nola's
looking different.
Nola has a bad 6th inning, and here we go. We're down 3-1. And we get to the 8th inning, and it's like, this is going to be it, right? The bats are struggling again. Not so fast. I will say if you are Robert Suarez, I would probably just to quote Mark Marcastelli, our man Mark's tweet, man, just call in sick when you have to come to Philly and pitch, because it's just not working out for you. You had Bedlam at the bank, and then last night this dude comes in, single, doesn't record an out, game over, gives up 2 runs. So to your point, man, yeah, like you're kind of just waiting for that next domino to fall and see if this team trips themselves up, and they're not doing that. They're just too good.
I think that's a great point too, because you mentioned like the London series, disappointing finish to that one, the Boston trip, disappointing finish to that series, and then obviously that continued against the Orioles. But I think to your point, kind of what you went through there is every opportunity in the world for this team to kind of fall apart and go into a major slump. You didn't have Trey Turner. Brandon Marsh has been beat up. JT Realmuto, your starting catcher, and to the point where you're having guys down the line, man. It doesn't just stop at guys like Dahl, right, out in the field. Yeah. Now you have Marchand coming out of nowhere with a 4-hit game. There's talk now, should he replace Garrett Stubbs on the regular roster when JT returns, which is a good thing. I get it. Like, Stubbs is a vibes guy, but if you can get something better on your roster, then let's explore it. And it's great that we've had this opportunity to do so. But to your point, man, just the ability to bounce back once again. And you get Ranger on the mound this afternoon, which you can go ahead and sweep this Padres team if you get the W today here at 1 p.m., the early game. But I did want to ask you kind of something off of that idea, because Nola did have the strong start yesterday, kind of fell apart a little bit in the 6th inning. You obviously have Wheels, you have Rangers having a career season. If you had to pick one of these starting pitchers to win you a playoff game tomorrow, rest equal, all of it's equal, right? They're all rested, they're all ready to go. If you had to pick one of these guys to win you a playoff game tomorrow, who's it going to be for you?
Oh man, I mean,
it's tough because they've been.
I mean, how do you not say Ranger Suarez, right? Like that's probably the popular answer, right?
Yeah.
I'm still going to stick with my man Zach Wheeler.
Wheels.
I still am. Like I get it. He had a rough go of it. 4 home runs in like 4 innings against the Orioles. Rangers 10-1, and in 12, 13 starts, he really hasn't even had a game where he's given up like 4 runs in a game. So it's tough. And when you look at Ranger and you see just the calm, cool, and collectiveness that he brings each and every night, and when he gets his himself out of jams over and over again, even when things start off an inning very poorly, I'm still going to go with the ace of the team, right? Because that's what Zach Wheeler still is at this point. And as much as Ranger Suarez is calm, cool, and collected, I feel like Zach Wheeler is the closest thing to that, right? Zach Wheeler does not get rocked. He might have a couple worse innings this season than Ranger Suarez has in his 13 starts, but Zach Wheeler doesn't get rocked or shelled either. So I'll still go with Wheeler. I will say it's a very nice question to be asked right now, because we haven't really had this problem in the past, right? Like, if anything, after Zach Wheeler, we were saying, who do we feel comfortable with in a playoff, right? Like, can we trust Aaron Nola? What do we have after Aaron Nola? Now it's like, who would you rather have on the mound in Game 1 or Game 5 or Game 7, whatever the case may be?
Yeah, I mean, what is your order of starters in the playoffs? Right. Like, once you enter the postseason. I mean,
for me, man, it's not going to happen. And I mean, maybe you keep it the same simply because if you have home field, you might trust one guy to go out on the road and get you a start out there and get you a win on the road. So I was going to say Wheeler, Ranger, Nola. You probably they're going to, but you probably should stick with Wheeler, Nola, Ranger, because where would you trust Aaron Nola against the Atlanta Braves at more?
At home.
Do you trust them at home, or do you trust them down in Atlanta?
Yeah,
and I would rather have Aaron at home at Citizens Bank Park, and I'd rather have Ranger on the road in a high leverage spot.
I agree with that.
In that scenario.
How do you feel about this as far as like the bullpen closer? Obviously, people were jumping to high ranges of expectations when they saw, a few games back of Jose Alvarado in that closing role.
Yeah.
Where are you at with the closer position right now? Do you feel like that is the upgrade, or is there somewhere else you would look as far as making an upgrade right now?
Listen, man, the name that's in this comment from TR, if you can go out and get this young stud out of one of the most poverty franchises in all of sports from the Oakland A's,
Is this a rumor, or is it just because of how bad they are?
It's both. Like
he's
possibly the best closer in the game this season. He pumps just straight triple digits every time he's on the mound. I think he's only blown one save opportunity this year, and it's when his broadcast team was actually talking about how he had him save, and I think Jose Siri for Tampa Bay was up,
the irony,
and then Jose Siri ripped a game-tying home run 2 seconds later. But Mason Miller's been lights out. I remember in the offseason, there were kind of links and rumors to Emmanuel Clase from the Guardians. Problem is the Guardians are a first-place team. And I don't think Cleveland is trading their all-star closer at the deadline because of the future or anything or contract-wise. So I think that's out of the question. I think if you can go get Mason Miller, any bullpen piece that can throw at the back end and figure things out. But yes, to this comment, Mason Miller would be that closer. At that point, Rob Thompson should have no more to make about who's in the 7th, 8th, or 9th. It's Mason Miller in the 9th always. So we'll see, man. It's going to cost an arm and a leg most likely. I'm okay with it. There's going to be a lot of other potential bidders, but Dombrowski gets aggressive, man.
How does that work from a Novus baseball fan over here? From a value standpoint of a guy like this that is just a closer, right? Is that something? And call me crazy, like I said, Novus baseball fan here. Is that something maybe you have to include an Orion Kirkring? Does it go that far as value?
Probably not Kirkring specifically, but you're probably looking at, I'd say at minimum three pieces from your farm system and three pretty premier pieces from your farm system, and then maybe a young piece, whether it would be a Johan Rojas, a Christian Pache, something along the line of that. But Kirkring specifically, no, I don't think that would be in the question, but something along that line, maybe Jordan Crawford is thrown into the deal and two other pieces in their farm system, and then you add in a Rojas or a Christian Pache or something like that. I'm not sure, but
So interesting enough. Well, go ahead. My bad.
No, I was going to say, he said if we can turn Rojas into Mason Miller, and we didn't even hit on the fact when Trey returned, Johan gets sent down, and people were kind of back and forth on social media about it. Why would he be the one? And I mean, you got to look at it from this standpoint, right? You could argue, well, I'd rather have Rojas backing up in center field than Pache. Why not send Pache down? Well, aren't we kind of hoping or envisioning Johan Rojas to be more of the future than a Christian Pache would be for this team? And if that's the case, he needs to get at bats every day consistently. He needs to fix the swing. I know he's gone through a couple times this season where the swing has looked better. He got one out of the ballpark this year. He's hitting for a little bit more power, it seems like, but he's hitting 235, bad slugging percentage, bad on base percentage. He's been picked off a couple of times, and I think he's league average, literally right in the middle of defensive runs saved, which is, I mean, that's what he was supposed to be, right? He's supposed to be a top 5 defensive center fielder, maybe the game's best, and he's not that. So if you're hitting 235, you're not slugging anything, and you're not what we needed you to be in the field, you have to go back down and you have to grow. Because right now you're not doing us any service, and we're doing you a disservice. So that's why Johan Rojas was sent down above everybody else.
And it may just be to that point where he's getting in his head a little bit, right? If he's not doing the things that he normally does well, then he obviously may be thinking about what he's doing with his bat a little too much right now. So.
There he is. He's here.
Yeah, we do gotta. That's a great point, man, because that completely slipped my mind over the weekend. But we do have to talk about that here in a little while, man. But I do agree with you. It brings up another point for myself here, because obviously Cassie had a great night last night, walked off the winner, right? And as I believe TR said earlier, Cassie leads the league in walk-off winners this season. So Cassie coming up in the clutch, but there's been some talk. I've seen a few tweets out there like Cassie's increased his trade value, so on and so forth. But then I've also heard the other arguments of Cassie is so inconsistent. We know that Cassie is that at this point. Like, we know he is what he is, right? With that thought in mind, does that mean you have to go and upgrade another part of the outfield just to get that consistency, right? You have Brandon Marsh in the other part of the outfield, but upgrading that other spot that would be a Rojas, a Dahl, or a Merrifield, right? A Pache. Getting somebody more consistent out there beside Castellanos so you don't have to rely on him to be consistent. How do you feel about that overall?
Yeah, so to TR's point, he's not going anywhere. I mean, first of all, no one's trading for that contract for the inconsistent product that you have. No contender, at least, right? And I don't want to necessarily trade Nick Castellanos. Like, don't get me wrong, he absolutely makes me want to pull my hair out every 3 weeks at least, minimum, right? But the highs are high, man. And we talk about camaraderie and vibes guy and what he can bring. And, you know, if he has one of those streaks come World Series time, well, then there we go. But to your point, the outfield market, we kind of talked about it on last week's show with the rumors of the 3 outfielders with Luis Robert, Kyle Tucker, Randy Arozarena, and so on. I mean, with the Rojas send down, I think it's clear and obvious now that they're going to upgrade the outfield in a major way, because I promise you, as cool of a story as David Dahl is, Dave Dombrowski does not have plans for David Dahl to be in this outfield every day. I know we've seen clips of Edmundo starting to get reps out in the outfield and in left field. I promise you that is not Dombrowski's plan for a World Series push. Okay, they're going to go hard and heavy after the outfield. Not only are they trying to get like a third guy, like a solid starting everyday outfielder, he also wants to upgrade the 4th outfield position as a depth piece.
Interesting.
As well, like a guy like Tommy Pham or something like that. So they're going to be
really good
at this deadline. I don't want to get ahead of myself because I want to win a World Series this year. I just don't know if anyone else saw the clip of another outfielder in New York being lit up on national television.
I did.
Giving a little praise to a former teammate in Philadelphia instead of his 2 teammates in New York. Juan Soto's going to be a Philly next year.
He's an interesting guy, man. He gives you that vibe, right? Like, why else do you say that? Like, on national television.
I think it's been stewing for so long, man, and you have the connection from Washington with Bryce, Schwartz, Turner, and Kevin Long, who Juan Soto absolutely loves. He wants to contend. Obviously, he's going to be contending in New York right now. You see what the Yankees are doing. He was contending in San Diego. They went to an NLCS, so he wants to contend. I don't know what Dombrowski and Middleton are going to open up that purse like. I don't know if they really want to give him $600 million. But if they do,
oh my God! You talk about a super team. You talk about a super team, brother. Oh my God, dude. That being said, before we move on, I do want to talk some Sixers now that Marshawn brought it up there. But how big is this game today? Do you think the Phillies come away with the W here at 1 with I believe Rangers on the mound, right?
Yeah, who's on the mound? That'd be right. Yeah. The Phillies are going to win because they just don't lose when Ranger Suarez is on the
mound. Fair enough.
The only game they've lost with Ranger Suarez on the mound was on the road to the Colorado freaking Rockies when Alec Boehm had like 3 errors in 1 inning. And they gave up 5 in the 2nd inning and got behind so badly. So bottom line is when Ranger Suarez pitches for the Phillies, good things happen and wins tend to occur. So, they're going to keep that streak at CBP alive. They're about to be 26-3 in their last 29 games at home. And Rangers about to get his 11th win on the season.
And they're going for their 50th win of the season already?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't think about that.
They're at 49 right now, unless ESPN hasn't updated since last night. They're at 49 right now.
The 50th. I think you're right. This would also be the 8th sweep of the season, and they would officially sweep more series this year than they did all of 2023. So they're tied right now, 7 sweeps right now, 7 sweeps last year. So, Yeah.
We're about halfway through.
Ranger going for his league-leading 11th win.
That is crazy, man.
I think Bone leads the league in doubles. There's a lot going on, man.
You know how we talk. Like, tell me if this is accurate. Like, is this like the pace of like the Celtics this season in the NBA? Is that the type of pace that we're looking at from the Phillies, or is it a little bit less than how dominant the Celtics were in an 82-game season? Like 49 and 24 right now.
I can't do that math for you. I'm not great at percentages, but
what, 73 games so far? Got 162 total.
It's probably right around there.
Right on the. It feels. Yeah, I would have. Like you said, we would have to get the calculators out, but it does feel 110 win pace so far. That's what.
Do they feel when you watch them? Do your eyes tell you they're as dominant on the field as Boston was on the court? And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah,
I do. I think they're.
I think when you look across their lineup,
I think there's a little more competition, right? Like I don't like when Boston was. How many wins did Boston have this year? 64, 63, something 64. Like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think another team won like 59 or anything like that out west. No, so whatever Minnesota or OKC won. When you in the MLB right now, you do have the Yankees who are up there. You do have the Guardians
right there. That's fair.
Are up there. You have the Dodgers up there. So there's teams that are closer. So the gap maybe between the Phillies and the other playing on the field isn't that great as it was with Boston. But I think they're just as dominant as you would watch the Celtics be.
Yeah. I think when you like step on the field against the Phillies, that's a pretty intimidating team. Like when you look at their three starting pitchers.
Here's the last thing I'll say before we move on to your stuff. It hurt a little bit not to win that Orioles series after you took game one in the fashion that you did, the long rain delay heading into the 11th inning, boom, the double, boom, you take game one. And then Wheeler obviously melts down. Nola doesn't have a great game. Or Taiwan doesn't have a great game, excuse me. Do people realize they went to Baltimore and played one of the best teams in the league without three starters?
Yeah.
Not just three starters, not just like, Brett, not just like, Johan Rojas was hurt. Like, whatever. No. They played the Orioles.
Turner, JT.
Trey Turner, JT Realmuto, and Brandon Marsh. Do you realize that? Like, that's
three of their biggest bats easily. Yeah.
So, and I know you're still missing JT, but Marsh is back and Turner's back. So now you can expect to see a little bit more. My bad. Last thing I actually have to say. What is it with this man in the month of June? Dude, it's like a bad joke.
I don't get it.
Stop running. He doesn't stop hitting dingers in the month of June.
I really don't understand it, man. I don't understand like the science.
5 runs in the last 6 days.
Yeah, because he hit one last night. He hit 2 the game before that.
He had a leadoff one. I think he had a leadoff one over the weekend.
Yeah, in the first game against the Orioles, he had a home run.
And the first game against the Red Sox, he hit a leadoff home run.
Yeah, he had 2 home runs in that first game against the Red Sox, returning from London. Yeah. So 2, 1, 6 home runs in 3 series, right? Yeah. So Kyle Schwarber, man. Let the haters go away for a little bit now, right? I don't know why Kyle Schwarber has to have haters here. Like there's just no reason. I love the guy. Even when he's going through a cold stretch, he's still just a cool ass dude. But nonetheless, you do have the Diamondbacks coming up after this Padres series as well, man. But you get that rematch.
Scotty, he's hitting 257. That's. Dude, in the past, we were cool if he hit 210 with the home runs. He's hitting almost 260 right now.
Put some respect on it, man.
That's crazy.
Got the Padres today. Hopefully sweep them, and then we get the Diamondbacks. Looks like they come to Philly as well after that. So we get
rematch.
That NLCS rematch. We need that. We need to go ahead and sweep those guys. Get them out of here, man. Frauds, bro. Fucking frauds. But let's talk some Sixers, man. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the fucking workout the other day, or do you want to start with Embiid flirting with PG on TV?
I like to start out
with the good stuff, right?
Yeah. It's a good place to start.
What were your thoughts on Embiid? Like, what did you take away from him? One, going to that coverage, right? Going into that coverage, joining the coverage before the NBA Finals game. What did you think of just that whole interaction with Embiid there right before Game 4?
I loved it, bro. Like, you know how I feel about Joel sometimes and about trolling and being on social media or saying things when you haven't been there, right? When you haven't even been out of the second round, right? But don't get me wrong, like Boston, they own us in the Joel Embiid era. Like, I get it, but just to go out there and not hold any punches. Like, remember when we lost in 7 to Boston and he was like hugging Tatum at the end, and we were like, bro, like, what the fuck? We were like, what is this? Like, how off are you? Like, to go out there and say, like, I hate that effing team, that effing city, like, blah, 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 everything about them. I was like, okay, the rivalry's still there. Joel's got a lot left in the tank up here.
He's just been humbled a little bit the last couple seasons, right? Like that,
right? Yeah. But the way that it was apparently set up from like another, I think it was Tim Bontis, or that like helped set it up, where PG was on the broadcast. Joel was just there. He heard that Paul George was on the cast, and Bontis got him up there. And like he sat next to him on purpose or whatever.
That's funny, man.
Legendary. And I loved everything about it. Bro, flirt your ass off. Because listen, people might not like it. I have no idea where Martian stands on it. At this point, with what we know is available to the Sixers in the offseason, there is no better option than Paul George. I'm not even questioning the 4 years anymore. I'm not even questioning the $200+ million anymore. I want to at least think I can contend over the next 2 to 3 years. And next, obviously, if that's because of Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid, then that's what I need to get done. I'm not even thinking about a possible Jimmy Butler trade from Miami anymore. I don't even know if I prefer that over Paul George at this point. And I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm not thinking that OG Anunoby is going to leave the Knicks and I'd rather have him. I'm not thinking about anything. I think Paul George is the most realistic, serious opportunity the Sixers have at bringing a guy in. He's a 42% three-point shooter. He's great off the ball. He's great on ball in isolation. He's a long wing. Okay, he hasn't won. He's got a ton of playoff experience at least. People talk about the injuries. He's played more than Jimmy Butler. He's played more than Kawhi Leonard, and you guys would take them in a fucking second. So, at this point, Joel, flirt your ass off, man. And I think Paul George and Joel knew exactly what was happening up there.
Yeah, I love everything you said about it, starting with Joel and kind of his motives going up there on the stage and sitting beside Paul George, man. Like Joel can read the room, man. Thank you, Joel. You can read the goddamn room because you got Daryl Morey bringing in Sam Decker for workouts right now. So somebody in the Sixers organization has their head on straight, and that's Joel Embiid. It starts with him, and I do love everything he said about the Celtics. Like you said, not holding your tongue, saying you hate that team, and even talking about the injuries in the Eastern Conference. It just shows you the way most of the rest of this conference should look at this. And I think from the other standpoint of what you said is, I think what Sixers fans need to stop doing when they dismiss Paul George is like looking at the Celtics and thinking, well, with Paul George, we're not competing with them. It's not about that right now. It's about fielding the best possible team around Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid and giving yourself the best chance. And I'm with you. I think Paul George is your best opportunity. Yes, there's Jimmy Butler's, the Mikal Bridges. You even got like a Lauri Markkanen. Lauri Markkanen is like that guy that I don't think he's available. Yeah. First of all, I don't think he's available.
Apparently, Mikal's not available either, bro, because the Nets.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think we have what it takes to go and get Lauri Markkanen, say if another team wants to go and get Lauri Markkanen. So Lauri Markkanen would be like that one exception for me. I think even over like a Jimmy Butler or a Mikal Bridges, that I would take a trade for Lauri Markkanen over Paul George. I just don't think that's realistic. I don't think that we have the things to get Lauri, and I don't think the Jazz are going to give him up. You're talking about Danny Ainge right now. So to that point, then you look at the rest of free agency. Is LeBron realistic? What is more realistic is what I would ask. Paul George or LeBron?
He's eating dinner with Nick Nurse, though.
That's what they said. It looked like Elton Brand, but it could be LeBron. I don't know. I'm not the best from, identifying these guys out in public. But I think Paul George, when you talk about the realisticness, the reality of it, there's a really realistic chance that Paul George will come to the Sixers because the Clippers just may not give him what he wants, man. And if we put that max contract on the table, it's going to be enough, man. And I think the biggest thing, you don't give up resources to get him. You still have that 16th pick this year. If you want to use it in the draft, I don't think they should, unless they know the guy that they want is going to fall there. I don't think you keep that pick. You go out, now you have access with your picks. Go out, get a Caruso or another, player of that caliber. It doesn't have to be Caruso with where his value is at in the media, but
exactly. I mean, 2 years ago, what was it? 2 or 3 years ago was the D'Anthony Melton draft night.
Yeah,
our pick and Danny Green, right? So, you make a trade like that absolutely benefits your team that night. You go out, you get Paul George. I know the big rumor with Kelly was he signed with, I forget what agency, but
like people CAA or something like
Kelly's
that.
going to look at it back now. Maybe he's back, maybe he's not. But the Paul George thing, man, I think it's very real. Apparently, it's the Sixers and Orlando who are the two most serious teams to offer him. If both teams offer him and he chooses the Orlando Magic, well, then I think that tells you everything you need to know about Paul George. I don't want to sound like I'm jealous or a hater or whatever, because we talk constantly about how this Sixers team is poorly run and poorly managed. But come on, bro. like Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and Nick Nurse or the Orlando Magic. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you get a bag from both teams and you choose that city and that team, that's a
Paul
problem.
George.
That's an internal problem. So we'll see what happens there, man. But the word I can't even say it seriously. The rumors that are occurring right now, I don't even know. Like it's nothing. It really is a nothing burger in reality. But why is it even happening, and why is it even being leaked or reported in any sense of the imagination? Why is it actually coming off of like John Clark's Twitter account?
Yeah.
Sixers and Daryl Morey have met and are working out Sam Decker. What the fuck are we doing?
And of course it's a former Rocket, right? Like
Houston. What, dude?
It just makes us look it makes Daryl Morey look really basic. Like, why?
The day after the Celtics raise banner number 18, we respond by saying we're working out Sam Decker. We also apparently have interest in Miles Bridges. That's news to me.
How do you feel about that, man? Because that is going to be a polarizing topic, I believe. I don't think it's going to fly very well in Philadelphia.
From a player perspective, from just on the floor, yeah, obviously I'd be interested.
Yeah.
The answer is very simply no. Yeah. And it's not because he's a distraction. It's not. Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like it happened over a year ago. His issue was with a woman, correct?
Yeah. Okay. Domestic violence.
That is the one thing I don't play with.
Yeah.
Like that is the number one thing. You do not put your hands on a woman, no matter what, bro. Yeah. I don't care if she's spitting in your face. I don't care if she's putting her hands on you first. You're Miles Bridges. You're like 6'6". You can move her and remove yourself from the situation. It's the one thing I don't play with. Yeah, and in front of his kid as well, like TR saying. That baggage is inexcusable. So no, and no team. He should not be allowed to play.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know where like signing Miles Bridges would be received like positively.
No, it can't.
Of course, people can change. People, can reform, whatever, right? But there's just no way that you sign this guy and people aren't, I believe people would literally boycott the Sixers if they did that. Like, I think they would lose money off of it.
A group of people definitely would.
Yeah, I do believe it, man. I don't know if I could take it like that far, But I mean, you're talking about the Sixers, a team that has already abused us anyways, outside of things like this. But then you add this on top
at the end of the day, what respect would I have for this organization or
Exactly.
like Daryl Morey as a man? Like you'd have to sit across from this man and let him ink the deal. Like you,
Right.
I just
like we're that desperate that we'll sign Miles Bridges in free agency, but we're not that desperate that we would trade Tobias Harris to get him the fuck off the team. You know what I mean? Like the decisions that have been made by this organization, but then you're gonna do that. Like it would just be really, really backwards, specifically from the Sixers organization, an organization that is filled with drama, anyways. Yeah. You don't need it. Like you just don't need that at all, man. But no, it is interesting from that standpoint. I was looking at this tweet from the Minnesota Timberwolves congratulating the Boston Celtics. What do you like? Could you imagine? I know the Sixers will not do that unless they absolutely can't read the room.
Here, okay?
Yeah.
What worse? The Minnesota Timberwolves actually putting out a tweet with like 3 pictures of them like hugging and embracing Celtics players and congratulating another team on winning the finals 30 seconds after they win the finals, or St. Louis Cardinals fans giving Paul Skeens a standing ovation when he leaves the field for the Pirates after striking out like 9 batters and you guys out in 7 innings. What's more embarrassing? That's pretty fucking embarrassing. Could you imagine, bro? Like,
pretty embarrassing.
Could you imagine being like at Citizens Bank Park and like Phillies fans got up and gave a standing ovation to the opposing pitcher after he like shut us out for 7 innings?
After you just like ruined my night at this game. Yeah. Like, because I came here to see my team rake. Like, that's what I came. I came to see my team put runs on the board. I'm not clapping for this dude that has just ruined my night. And bored my night. It's
pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think T-Wolves from championship level. Like, yeah, that's what I was going to say, Marshall. Like, what does Anthony Edwards think of that shit? Like, that shit is corny.
It would be a lot worse if the Celtics beat the Timberwolves.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then the T-Wolves had that one ready and loaded to put out there.
What'd you think of that finals matchup, man, overall?
It was horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And
one of the worst matchups I've seen, man.
I think I said this to you last week. Look, the issue with this series was you have 2 stars in Kyrie and Luka. And outside of that, you have a very average, you have a Sixers-esque roster around those 2. Now, Dallas had to win games. Dallas had to win series. They got there. That's not to discredit them. But would we sit here and say the Dallas Mavericks were the best representative of the Western Conference? Were they the best team in the Western Conference?
No. Not for my money. No.
Now, what does a series versus the Denver Nuggets look like?
Yeah.
Now, again, Denver lost. Like that's I get it. What I'm saying is it looks different. It looks different if the Celtics play Nuggets. It might look different if the Celtics are playing the Timberwolves. Yeah, it might look different if the Celtics are playing the Lakers or any LeBron. It might just be different. From a matchup perspective, it was a nightmare for the Mavericks.
Yeah.
And the Celtics are just that good. But
like if you look around the league, is there a team that has more guys than the Celtics that can possibly guard like Luka and Kyrie Irving? Like, do they have? Is there a team with more options like Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum to throw at these 2 stars? Right.
First, this comment is 1,000% correct. This dude is a walking.
As a Duke fan, I completely agree. Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
I can't take it, man. It's like he had that one just in the chamber. Like, look, what am I going to say?
So corny. Did you see this video? There was 3 different instances where he copied somebody else's moment.
Yeah. On Twitter, I saw.
Odd stuff.
Really bad, man. Secondly, when talking about Luka Doncic, Sixers fans, relax. When talking about Luka Doncic, in a weird way, it actually made me respect Joel Embiid more.
Why is it? I'm curious.
Who would the Boston Celtics pick on defensively? Or offensively, I should say. But
yeah.
And it's not because he can't. It's just because he doesn't. And there's a lot of stars, a lot of great scorers that don't. And we sit here and we talk about Joel's conditioning and his injuries and this and that, when in reality, this dude for us has to do everything Luka Doncic does on offense and more.
Yeah.
And then does it on the defensive side as well. And we say, well, why is he so gassed at the end of games? Well, because he's doing something that no other star does for his franchise. I sat there, I watched Luka play absolutely zero defense and try to fail bait and then sit on the floor and not get up in transition and watch the Celtics hit back-to-back threes in this series. That absolutely changed the course of games. Yeah. And I sat here and said, listen, the dude is a top 5 player. He's a top 5 talent.
Absolutely.
But, come on.
It's going to be a perennial MVP candidate to give him his respect. But to your point, it's funny because it feels like coming out of this postseason, the heat is turned all the way up on Joel Embiid. And fair enough to an extent, but to the point where I think it was Bill Simmons that called Joel Embiid like the 9th best player. And there's no fucking way. There's no fucking way. Like, it's not possible, man. Like, there are maybe 1 or 2 players that you could argue are better than Joel. In what world could Joel Embiid go into the NBA Finals and have his team win the NBA Finals and not win Finals MVP?
Yeah.
What world is that happening?
Yeah.
Never. As good as Maxey is, that is never happening. For Embiid to go into the finals and shoot the percentages that Jason Tatum shot, as bad as he shot.
Drew Holiday had a better chance of winning Finals MVP than Jason Tatum. Drew Holiday had a bigger impact in this series than Jason Tatum did.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And to that point, I mean, that Celtics team, I saw it in the comments up here. That team was stacked. Yeah, if they didn't win, it would have been another bust. And that Hunter is a Celtics fan, so that's coming from a Celtics fan there. TR says they flew to Miami to party. Yeah, I don't know, man. That finals was just
they called it the best city. They called it the best city in the world, and then flew to Miami 30 seconds later. They really did. And I'm pretty sure Peyton Pritchard made 2 shots all series, and both of them were like half-court buzzer beating threes.
I saw the one he made, and they were pointing out how it was like a travel, like clearly a travel. But no, that's the NBA for you, man. So obviously the Celtics come away as NBA champ. How do you feel about that, though? I've seen some heat, some arguments about world champions, the label of it. The Celtics, are they world champions, world basketball champions? How do you feel about that?
So, I mean, I think I know what you're talking about. Like, I've seen the argument, like, when we say, like, world, like, I remember when Chase Utley was, like, world champions. Like, we're not world champions, technically. Like, it's not
like the FIBA account on Twitter retweeted the Celtics calling themselves world champions, and they put world champions ? Right? With, like, I believe a picture of the
Canada. I will say, I say it because these are the best leagues in the world when it comes. Like, the NBA is the best basketball league in the world.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah.
So when you are the best league of all the leagues in the world, then I guess you can say world champions, right? So
Right. Because the argument obviously is with the NFL, you can say world champions. We're the only country that really gets into the American football. But when you get into basketball, you got leagues in other countries, of course. But my biggest like opposition to not calling them world champions would be to have like, I think Team Germany won the last tournament that teams were a part of, right? USA sent out like a junior league squad out there, but Germany comes out, I believe they won with like the Wagner twins and like Dennis Schroeder and shit. Whatever that last tournament was, like maybe last year. Have that team play the Boston Celtics and see if they would win.
They won it. but
outside of the USA,
it does depend on what rules we're playing by, right? You're playing FIBA rules.
It is a lot more physical.
Things get a little more physical, and things can change. But
no
from a
goaltending
talent perspective, I don't care who it is. They're not the Celtics if it's Team Germany who's on there. But yeah, man, I was going to say one last thing, and now there it is. So yeah, the whole dynasty question when it comes to Boston. Don't get me wrong, man. They're legit, right? Like, you don't win 64 games and then cruise your way to a finals for no reason. Even when Porzingis was hurt, they were still doing it. And I really don't want to sound how I know I'm about to sound. But is this not one of the worst NBA final runs of all time? Is it not? Like, I'd have to go back in history and look at what other champions did. But you beat the Miami Heat without Jimmy Butler. Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin, and Bam Adebayo. And then you beat the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Mostly no D-Mitch.
7 with the Orlando Magic the series before. Lost Donovan Mitchell after game 2. The series was 1-1, by the way. Lost him, and then you beat Max Strus, Evan Mobley, and no Jared Allen either. So you beat George Niang. Then you beat the Pacers. Who, listen, you swept the Pacers. They got there. Like I said, same thing as the Mavericks, right? The Pacers got there. You can't take that away from them. First time in the NBA playoffs, very young team. TJ McConnell and Obi Toppin are playing out of their minds. This is who you beat. And then you played the Mavericks, who were not the best team in the Western Conference. I know how I sound right now. I get it. If there were Boston people in the chat right now, I understand why I could be cooked. Because if I was a fan, if my team won, and I heard people saying that, I'd be telling them to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
But it's a weak run, man. It
Luka
really
was injured too, by the way.
What'd you say?
Luka was injured too, by the way.
Yeah.
He's beat up. He's banged up. I'm not giving him any excuses, none of that. But yeah, to your point, man, I think what you're saying is, like, it's not necessarily that the Celtics aren't the champions or that they didn't deserve the championship, right? The championship win. It's not saying that. It's more or less just saying the road could have been a lot harder compared to previous seasons that what we've seen, right? And Embiid, to your point, Embiid pointed that out on the broadcast too. Shout out to him. He was injured. Halliburton was injured. Spida was injured. Jimmy was injured. So every single team, I mean, Giannis was injured. Even the teams that they didn't play in the Eastern Conference, right, were beat up, didn't have certain players. So to that point, it's hard to say that the Celtics got their best test, right? That was possible this season.
Right. I mean, I remember after we lost to New York, obviously, and I hate that fucking team in that city, but you do wonder, the Celtics still would have won, obviously.
New York was beat up.
Yeah, but I wonder what a series versus the Knicks looks like versus sweep versus the Pacers.
Yeah.
I don't think Boston's sweeping the Knicks. I don't think that physicality. I think that whistle in New York would be different. I think when you have
it's a great point,
right? What happens when you have
and the Pacers played them close as hell without Halliburton, like closer than the Mavs did in a sense, right? Like I know there was one game where the Celtics blew them out, but no, I do agree, man. I think when you look at the Celtics going forward, sure, if this was what like put Tatum and Jaylen Brown into like this zone where now they're going to be locked in clutch moments forever, then sure, they could definitely become a dynasty. They are built like a team that could. But this is the first time in how many years of this core, right? And maybe this, once again, maybe this is the breakthrough. But Al Horford, is he there next year? Not saying he's like the biggest piece or one of the biggest. He is a piece. He's a rotational piece. Is he there next year? Is Derek White next year? Do you get ahead of that? Because you're not going to be able to pay him.
No.
Drew Holiday gets a year older, right? I know Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, they're good to go for the time being. Is Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, are those guys legitimate NBA players going forward? Or is it one of those things like a Gabe Vincent in Miami, he leaves Miami and then turns into – we got to find out, right? That wasn't the deepest team in the NBA, but Kristaps Porzingis gets healthy, right? They didn't have him in the – There's a lot of things pulling me different ways here, but I do ultimately agree with you. I just think the Celtics did not get the best test possible for this final trip and this championship win. But they still won. not going to give them any kudos or nothing like that. I hate Boston, just like our man Embiid says. But yeah, man, I think that's all we got for this show, my man. I know you got to get out to the sand there, my man. I don't want to hold you up too much longer here. We'll get into some more on Friday. Definitely, guys, all the people in the comments, by the way, thank you for commenting throughout the show. Be sure Friday, come on back. We'll be here around the same time, maybe a little bit earlier in the 9 o'clock hour. But definitely keep the comments coming. Let us know what you want to talk about. We're in the dog days of summer, so we can get pretty customizable here on the show going forward.
Make a little Sixers wish list.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We got to get into some Eagles soon, too, my man, and keep the Phillies talk going. But
yes, sir.
Awesome,
absolutely,
brother.
But you guys, that is going to wrap up this Wednesday edition of the Phaithful Fanatic Show. For all of you guys that have subscribed, we appreciate you. Like Scotty said, everybody in the comment section, we greatly appreciate you. It makes the show that much more fun, that much more. Just the exchanges are so much better. So come back on Friday, come back every week, and we'll talk to you then. Peace out.
Peace out, everybody.